what do you anticipate with the 3 injured guys I asked about Monday, as far as practice goes?
No changes. Vato with his hamstring be kind of day to day. I don't think he'll practice today. Asante's still in the protocol, and then JJ is the same, just kind of day to day. I do not think he will practice today.
Asante, the protocol, you have to wait till they get clearance before you can do anything, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Justin hurt his hand, or I guess maybe it hurt, but had some of his hand against the Chiefs where he hit the helmet and the follow through. You mentioned after the game that it wasn't an issue. Is that persisting at all? Is there anything there in terms of affecting his performance with the hand injury?
No.
Speaking about Justin, you guys have produced explosive plays in the passing game. I think you're top 10 in the league in explosive passes. But Justin's average air yards are pretty low among quarterbacks. I think it's 26th in the league. Is that where you want it? The average depth of target on those throws? Are you pushing the ball downfield the way that you want to?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of design in the plan to push it down the field. I know that if you study the type of plays that we've run, I mean, a lot of our design is to get it down the field. Whether or not it makes it there, that's a different story. And I think we're always trying to hunt explosions in the passing game, and at the same time, you're always hunting completions too. You want to complete, passes and stay on schedule. And I think a lot of the passing game is pass protection too. You're factoring who's blocking for you and what's on the other side, what type of defenses you're facing. And I think, when you have premium wideouts and a premium passing game, in terms of targets that we have, that there's going to be certain teams that want to put a roof over the deep part of the field. And so maybe a designer play action pass or a designer drop back pass doesn't get to 30 or 40 yards of air time. Maybe it is a 4 or 5 yard, check down to a back or a tight end that gets you 10 to 12, which would be a nice chunk. And I think that's where we got to find the balance, is to be able to attack the deep part of the field and make people respect the deep part of the field. But also, explosive passes can come in a lot of other ways too, in the screen game, quick game that, takes advantage of man-to-man, those types of things. And so we have a quarterback that can access a lot of, any part of the field, which is a good thing. But I do think it's really more about completions. It's finding completions and staying on schedule, and being aggressive and setting the terms to the defense, not the other way around.
Do you feel like it'd be fair to say that opposing defenses are trying to take that away from Justin, considering what he's done in his career so far in terms of 50+ yard passes?
I think so. I think they know the types of passes that he can make, and I think he knows the types of receivers that we have and the types of tight ends that we can have. They can get there. So I think that from a formula standpoint, I mean, if I were playing against us, which I did all through training camp, you're not trying to you're not letting the ball go there. You're trying to say you're not gonna get here. And so I think we just got to find the balance of, being prolific in the passing attack in other ways. And then when that scheme dictates itself, then, you're attacking and you're staying aggressive and you're giving your guys opportunities. And, like I said, I like our design right now. And I think our execution, if we can continue to practice more, be together more, then I think our execution will improve. And that's what, we're really after right now, is that execution piece.
Brandon, with the last 2 games and the constant pressure, do you think maybe Justin rushing out of the pocket or maybe overthinking with the defense a little more?
I think that anytime a quarterback feels pressure early in the game, or there's some consistency to where the pressure's coming from, it can affect you at times. But he's got to play the position and trust the pocket and trust his instincts, and he has both of those: is trust in his teammates and trust in his instincts. And if there are some plays in there where his feet and his eyes don't match up, it's going back to his fundamentals and the timing and the rhythm of the play, and working with Shane and Joe on all those quarterbacking type elements that are important. And a lot of times it's not the design of the play, it's just your fundamentals within the play. And I think that's part of being new in an offense, is just really trusting your feet and your eyes. And I think the last 2 games, I think that he would tell you that he can be better in some of those areas, but at the same time, we've got to do a great job around him coaching and playing. So, because I know he's going to make the improvements. And I think that in the passing game, where we're at right now is we've shown that we can really throw the football, but we want to be able to show that we can do it consistently all the time, regardless of the coverage, regardless of the game plan. And I think that's where we're at right now.
How would you evaluate Jalen guidance season?
Yeah, JG's done some good things for us. I've liked the way he's practiced. I think he's really earning Justin's confidence. He stays with him every single day after practice, and I think that's a positive as a young player. I think that he's been able to create some positive plays. I think he's fallen short on a couple. The Kansas City play in the end zone. Hey, there's a Baltimore on the sideline. There's a couple kind of near misses for him, and I think that that's where he can, solidify more production, is if he can finish some of those plays in the deep part of the field, because we need him to be that guy that can get to the deep part of the field for us and be a guy that can run after the catch too, because he's shown that he can do that. So I think that he's still developing. I'm glad we have him, and we're just going to continue to try and search for that consistency and that right role within the plan, and I know he's working hard.
Have there been any, obviously you're not going to tell us, but has there, sorry.
Ask anyway.
So obviously, have you guys thought about maybe giving Josh put a little bit more on his plate?
Sure.
And maybe take a little bit off of Jalen?
Yeah, I think you've seen that in the last couple of weeks. I think Josh is really, against Baltimore. I really thought that Josh had a good game against Baltimore. I know that we didn't have the type of performance offensively, but I thought that Josh played well in that game, and I thought he played well in the last game too. And so I think he's getting more and more confidence. I know that he and Jalen are both with Justin after practice, attached to the hip. And, I think if you guys saw that, you would see that, hey, these two guys are really trying to earn the trust of this quarterback. And I think both of those guys in that third role, there's a place for them in that third role in different ways, and that's what we're going to try and do, is try and feature both of them. And I think they're both continuing to improve, and they're both young guys, so I'm excited to keep coaching them. And Chris Beatty's doing an awesome job coaching them, and we're going to continue to try and find those right roles within the plan for both of them.
Keep with the passing game questions here.
Yeah.
With Mike Williams, given the way he started the season, I know he's had the knee thing. I don't know if that's lingering at all, but have teams the last couple of weeks here, or last couple of games, have you seen, are they defending him differently at all, or paying more attention just based on the way he came out of the gate here to start the season?
I think that specifically him, no, just in terms of just specifically Mike. I think just us in the passing game, again, against New England, there was more two-deep zone. Baltimore didn't play us that way, but New England did. New England played a lot more zone defense, whether it was two deep or three deep against us. And so I think that as a receiver, your touches are going to come, maybe not in the spectacular fashion like early in the season, or the type of volume, of throws within the plan. But it's kind of like rushers and guys that are kind of productivity-driven positions. Your catches can come in bunches, and within a specific plan and flow of the game and stuff like that. And so, we're trying to feature Mike a bunch in the plan. And, for instance, we had a really good shot play that was open versus New England. And, we kind of were at the snap, not on the same page from an, alignment, snap point type, operational, issue. And hey, if you hit that, then now you're kind of rolling. And we didn't get that, like that rhythm and, production that we had at the beginning of the season with him. So I know he's working hard, and that's something that's really important to me, is that I think that he feels comfortable within this offense, and he knows that we're trying to get it to him. And I think that, when you have guys like him and Keenan that are feature players, Austin, Jared, what you're trying to do is say, hey guys, he's got all of you available in this plan, and we're going to try and get it to you the best way we can, and be patient because the ball's coming your way. And that's certainly what I've tried to tell those guys, is just, hey, when you've got a good group of guys, it's going to get spread around sometimes. And I think that he got hot early, but just to say he's cooled off late, I don't know if cooled off would be the right way of saying it, but I know that hot streak is going to come back to him soon.
7-8 weeks into the season, how much of a concern is it just now that alignment issues and maybe not being on the same page has cropped up?
I think no matter how long you've been together, I think clean operation is what you're after. I think that for us offensively, some of our issues can be traced back to that, not all of them. But I think what we're trying to do since the bye is be more exacting in all three phases of the game. And I think that once now you've kind of established, hey, this is who we are, this is who we have, now you can dive into those specifics and really demand those details from one another, and I think that that's where we're at. And I think this group of guys is going to pour into the work this week and get there, because I know offensively we know that we're capable of more.
Jonathan Gannon, coordinating the defense in Philly, you guys have a relationship. Just what has he meant to you in your career and in your life?
Yeah, he's one of my very, very best friends. He's one of the best men I know. He's one of the best coaches I know. I certainly wouldn't be here without him. You know, we started competing against each other in the 4th grade, playing AAU basketball, and come from similar families. And just we kind of grew up on the basketball court together, competing against one another. We're both point guards and kind of similar, I think, type players and similar type competitors, and just got to know one another and stayed in close touch when we were in college, when we were both playing. And then after college, when we both got into coaching, we started to get really close, because once you're kind of in that same fraternity, like we became like best friends. And you know, he climbed the ladder fast, and he was in the NFL at an early age, and so he's always meant a lot to me. He's been around a lot of great coaches. He's coached a lot of great players, and you know, he's godson to my youngest boy, and his wife Gina. Their family mean a lot to me and Amy. So he's one of the best guys I know. I know Philly's really, really lucky to have him, because he's one of the best coaches I know, and he's one of the best people I know.
Who was the better AAU point guard?
JG, if he hadn't got hurt at Louisville, would still be playing in the NFL. You know, so he was the better athlete for sure. But we had some great matchups, and that's what really brought us together was, you know, that competition on the basketball court. He was a heck of a player, though, and he's one of the guys that he actually could have played at Louisville basketball too. As good as a football player as he was, he could have played for Rick Pitino and those guys. He was that caliber player.
Brandon, you said on Monday that you're still learning. You're a first-year head coach. When you match up against guys like John Harbaugh, like Bill Belichick, do you feel yourself learning from kind of things that they do, whether it's what Bill did on special teams with the Gunners or stuff like that? Do you feel like you learn as well?
Yeah, I mean, Fernando, I think that Ron Rivera is the NFL Coach of the Year, Andy Reid, Super Bowl champion, Coach of the Year, John Gruden. I mean, this, you know, stretch to open up the season, I'm learning from everybody I go against head to head, you know, and I think every matchup's a little bit different, and every coach has a unique style. And you know, I'm leaving out Mike McCarthy, and there's, you know, I mean, there's a bunch of great coaches that we've gone against so far this season. But I think in every matchup, there's that game within the game, and I think that the inventory of experiences that a lot of these guys have, that have been doing it so much longer than I have, you're trying to draw from. I've read about a lot of these guys and followed them, you know, as a young coach coming up, and so that's what you're always trying to do, is learn about your competition. You know, and I think that if you're a competitor, that's a big part of it, is knowing your competition and knowing who you're up against. And when you do go head-to-head, regardless of how it goes, you take away those meaningful experiences. And, you know, these last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of lessons to learn, but there were a lot of lessons to learn at the beginning of the season against those guys and wins, too. So I think that, you know, more than anything, you know, you gotta be yourself, and you got to incorporate the lessons you learn into your own game, and then, you know, do your best for your team, and I think that's where we're at right now. You know, we've had some, you know, 2 tough losses, and I think that that's going to reveal a lot of you know, responding to when things aren't going as well, and that's part of the NFL. You know, we haven't won a game in 3 weeks because we had a bye. So how are you going to get your team ready to play? How are you guys going to practice? What's the mood like within the building, and are you going to change, or, you know, and I think that that's something that I'm going through right now for the first time as a head coach. Okay, we've lost 2 games in a row. All right, that's the first time it's happened for me. And what are you going to do to respond? And that's what we've been working hard at this week with our players and coaches. And I think that that's something that learning from those guys is, you know, why they've stood the test of time. Is because they have a lot of that, you know, that consistency and performance and getting their team to play and knowing who their team is and being able to push the right buttons and learn from their mistakes. And so I'm hoping to do that too.
Have you changed, or has the message been consistent, or have you changed the way you've addressed players, or?
No, it's just very consistent. I think that's what everyone's looking for, is consistency. And I think not the same message, but the consistency in how you're doing things. You know, the message, hey, every week has a life of its own. You know, and so every week's a different week, but our approach is going to remain consistent. and what we're actually saying and how we go about the week and the specifics of the week are going to change. But our approach and our philosophy and how we do things, that's going to stand the test of time, and that's what players want. Players want that consistency and performance from their coaches, and I think that allows you to be as good as you can be, and then knowing, where you need to be. I think that's a big part of it, is every week's different. Hey, your team changes a little bit, injuries, things like that, and circumstances, and so you got to be where you need to be, and that's certainly what I'm learning and trying to do.
Just going to Philadelphia, how much of a challenge is it with Hurts and what he does with RPOs and different things?
Yeah, Jalen's a really tough cover. Number one, the guy's a winner. I mean, you go back to Alabama, really go back to those high school days in Texas, Bama, Oklahoma, the guy's a winner, and there's a reason why he's a starting quarterback there. They're coming off a really big win, and he's a guy that can really elevate the performance of people around him. I think people believe in him and what he can do. And I know that, like in that Tampa game's a good example, as they were behind, but then he comes roaring back, kind of brings you back, and that's kind of what type of player he is. He certainly presents a lot of issues in the run game because of the +1, issue of him truly being able to carry the football like a running back, and then in the pocket as a passer, being able to affect your pass rush plan because of how effective he is as a runner. He's got thick lowers. He's a really tough guy to tackle, and he's fast. So, I think he's a young player. He's learning a lot every game, and you can see that he's getting the chemistry with those guys, those young receivers. They got a lot of young receivers, and they're getting that chemistry together. And, I think that that response they had last week coming off a tough loss says a lot about him, because they went on the road and they won a big game, and he played extremely well. So he's definitely a difficult guy to defend for sure.
Besides the 3 players that Jeff asked you about, anybody else that might not be out there today?
I don't think so. K9's going to work back into practice. Kenneth Murray, he's going to work back into practice. Status for the game still, day to day up in the air, but he's going to work back into practice this week, into individual for sure. So excited to see him out there today, and I think that's the only other guy that, maybe new out there on the field today.
With Samuel and Davis, yes, sorry, was Brent walking there, both down, just how's Ryan Smith been doing, working in a corner, and obviously that would also Keemon Hall might
Sure.
get more chances depending on status of.
Yeah, I thought that TC and Ryan came into the game and held their own. We played a substantial part of the game with them, and so I think that said a lot about them, their performance really in that second half. And our secondary coaching staff does a great job getting all those guys ready to play, and I thought their performance against New England was reflective of that. And now we're going to see them more in a leading role this week, and we're hoping to get some guys back. But if we have to play with those guys as starters, they're going to be ready to play, and we're going to try and feature their games as much as we can, and then get the guys behind them ready to play. And I think that's a big part of the NFL, is playing when people are down. And so we're going to find out a lot about ourselves this week.
On Monday, you mentioned that maybe it's not the best idea to force trades because you're early in this part of this operation for you.
Mhm.
I think part of it because there's so many young guys on defense and you want to see these guys maybe play a full year in your system.
I think that could be an angle to look at. I don't think that had a big factor in our decision not to do anything at the deadline. I think it really goes back to my statement on Monday, just about value and weighing those opportunities with where we're at right now. And I think that the deadline came and went, and this year was a quiet period for us. And so I think our approach is going to be, hey, each year has a life of its own. We're going to try and assess our team the best way we can and be aggressive when we can. And then if we can't, then hey, we're gonna move on to the next part of player acquisition, which is, hey, free agency, the draft, and then keep it moving that way.
Has there been any conversations about possibly moving Kenneth to outside linebacker, maybe going Kaiser and Drew in the middle, or?
I think that K9's role is evolving for us, and I think that we certainly see him as a starting linebacker for us in any capacity, because we think he's a really quality player, and I think that what this injury's done has allowed us more time to develop that role, and I think that you're going to see K9 come back, and I'm really excited to see him out there because I think that he can do a lot of things for us, and I think we got a good little sample of him at the beginning of the year and then in training camp. And then moving forward, we're going to need him out there because he's got the type of athleticism and the type of playmaking ability that needs to be out there for us. So I'm excited to get him back into practice for sure.